Sharpen this pencil and then ready. Hello everyone and welcome. Today it's not a Monday Doodle, it's a summer school day. And this is part one, which I have called Draw a Vase. And this whole summer school thing is a new thing that I'm trying to do. Usually, I do Monday Doodles on Mondays, but I figured I had to go with something special here in June, where I learn some new stuff and where I share what I learned with you guys. You can watch them live here each Monday during June, and you can of course also just catch up on them later because they're here forever, I guess, on YouTube. So what's this summer school Betty Edwards thing about? It's because I've had this book for years. It's a classic book on drawing by author and artist Betty Edwards. My book here is in Danish. It's called To Draw is to See, a guide into freehand drawing. I think the official one, the one in English, is called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And I've had this book for like several years, and one of the exercises in it that I've done many times is blind contour drawing, which is a classic one. This is the first time I was introduced to this exercise in this book, but I've never really delved into what this book is about. Like, what's the theory behind it? Who is Betty Edwards, and why did she do these explain these exercises? So I figured I want to really get into the nitty-gritty of this, learn it and read it carefully, what she says and what's the theory, and do some of the exercises. And I thought, why not share this with you guys, so you can also get all this amazing knowledge from her. So yeah, as I've mentioned, each Monday here in June I will do a live stream. I'll explain some theory, a bit about what's in the chapter, and then I will do just one exercise and share it with you guys, demonstrate it. And you can draw along, of course. I encourage you to do that. The exercises are really pretty straightforward, and they only demand that you kind of set aside an hour or so where you won't get disturbed. And then just a plain piece of paper and a pencil. Very simple. That's the good thing about this book also. It's quite simple exercises. And it won't be heavy stuff, it will just be light stuff and easy accessible for everyone. Also, if you are a person who are kind of scared of drawing or have never tried it before, this is your chance to really try something new. So with those words, I think I'm just gonna dive into this first part here. One out of 4 parts. And I'll start out with giving some background information about who is Betty Edwards and her theories, just a little bit on drawing, and then I'll go into this first week's exercise, which is more of a warm-up exercise really. It doesn't take long. So let's also not forget to do this. Cheers. Okay, so let me just see if I have a picture in here of Betty Edwards. I don't think I have. No. You can Google her and find a profile picture of her. But Betty Edwards, she worked many years as an art teacher and as a book author. She made some books on drawing. Probably most famous for this book right here I have in my hand, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. So what was Betty Edwards interested in really? she realized early in her life that she was good at drawing, but and people asked her why, how can you be so good at drawing? There was some kind of mystical thing about this thing. Also, artists in general being good at drawing. And Betty was knew that all she had to do was to look at her surroundings in a specific way, and then draw in that way. But it was hard for her to clarify what kind of way this was. Like this was kind of weird to explain to people. She was also a drawing teacher in many years, and she found it hard to communicate to her students this way of seeing and this way of drawing, and she was puzzled that only like a few people out of, for instance, 30 in a class became good at drawing while the rest didn't achieve the level that she wanted to. So she began investigating books that dealt with split brain experiments. And those were experiments where scientists found out that both hemispheres in the right and the left side of the brain work together in higher cognitive processes. But that the two hemispheres in our brain work differently. So the right side of our brain works differently than the left side of our brain, really. This led on to Betty Edwards coming up with something that she calls the R method. R standing for the right hemisphere. So she came up with the idea that when people are good at drawing, it's because they change their perception in order to process visual information from the left side to the right side. And the reason being that the left side of the brain, the left hemisphere of our brain, deals with verbal things and analytical processing and more like rational thinking. And we're gonna go more into details with that in next part actually. And then we have the right hemisphere of the brain, which deals with where was I? Spatial processing. So spatial processing and more intuitive and irrational. And yeah, so brain studies show that our left hemisphere deals with verbal, analytical, rational, and linear ways, while our right side of the brain likes to do the job non-verbally, synthetically, in a concrete, irrational, and spatial manner. Those are the big differences. And I think that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And as we shall see, she's right. There's something that happens when we draw and we change from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain in our visual, in our processing in the brain of visual information. So all in all, Betty Edwards kind of argues that we can develop a new way of looking at things when drawing that builds upon workings of the right hemisphere of the brain, and we will delve into that. And yeah, she also she says that we can actually learn to take the shift from the left hemisphere of the brain to the right hemisphere, and that would be brilliant when we're drawing to be able to make that change. And Betty Edwards also calls this way of seeing to see as an artist. So it's really interesting. And I think next time I'll go more into depth with this left versus right hemisphere of the brain. But now I want to go into the first exercise, the only exercise of this week, which is really easy, straightforward. And if you're sitting out there and watching this live right now, you can grab a piece of paper and a pen, and then I'll go through the drawing exercise with you and do the drawing as well. So what we need is, of course, a piece of paper and a pencil. And then I will just flip the camera here, and I will instruct while you guys can see my paper here also. The first thing that you do is that we have to draw the profile of a person's head on the left side of the paper, over here, right side if you are left-handed, with the person's head facing the middle of the paper. And you start from the bottom. And just to make it easier for us to understand what this is about, you can see this demonstration here. This is what she wants us to do, basically, to draw this profile here, and you can tell that the person is facing the middle of the paper. And you're welcome to use this drawing as a reference. You can also use my drawing, which I draw now, as a reference. And I start at the bottom. So, left side of the paper, I start here. And I draw a profile from the bottom. Kind of like that. And it doesn't really matter if your profile isn't perfect. As you can tell, mine is, I don't know, this could be a human being. It was pretty weird. But what we do now is that we draw the horizontal lines in top and bottom of our profile. So top, this is from here. I go with a horizontal line. And also down here in the bottom, at the same length of this line up here. So now, as you can already tell, we have half of a vase, you know, we have a profile and half of a vase. So before drawing the other side, because I think that you already guessed that we're going to do that, Betty Edwards mentions that we have to go over this line of the profile we just drew, while saying inside your head the names of the features. So you know we have a neck, we have a chin, we have a lower lip, over lip, nose, forehead. And I will now go over the line while saying those things inside of my head. And you can do the same. Okay. Okay. And what you do now is we are going to finish the vase, but this time we do it from the top and down, and we draw this without mentioning any names or anything. Just copy the other side of the vase here and start from the top. Doesn't matter that my drawing became a little bit longer here. So there we go. Let me just get a closer look here. Became very much different, yeah, than the other side. But there's also a reason for this. Let me just put the camera here. So, I don't know how that was for you, but I think something interesting changed here, and Betty Edwards has a point upon that. So in the first part of the profile, we drew this by using a symbolic convention. We used language to name each element here. And then something maybe changed when drawing the other profile of the vase, because there you were maybe more interested in looking at angles and finding the curves without thinking about any names. And this is where your right side of the brain, the right hemisphere, is activated, the one that deals with spatial and irrational ways of thinking, the one which is really suitable for drawing. And maybe your two hemispheres was in conflict when doing the final profile here. I don't know how you feel about that. But yeah, that was sort of kind of showing you this shift that went from the left hemisphere of the brain to the workings of the right side of the brain. And yeah, let me know in the comments how you felt that felt. And next time we will delve more into this, into detail with this theory, and there will be a new exercise. Thank you all for tuning in, and till next time, have fun drawing.